3 favourite tools the emotional abuser uses to control you. What you may not have realised was that you were living in a war zone. People sign up to go to war. You didn't. You might have been brought to your knees, left in a state of mental confusion, physical exhaustion, emotionally shocked. You might be experiencing feelings of shame, perhaps humiliation, guilt and abandonment. This is regardless of your status, your intellect or your material wealth, which will definitely have been affected. The 3 tools they use. Number 1, they are expert fishermen or women. The emotional abusers are experts at hooking their targets. They have a radar that seems to search out the wounds that you hold from childhood. They have all the tools ready to bait you, to hook you, and then to land you. The idealisation stage is their bait. They have never met anyone as special as you, or who's ever understood them the way you do. They might have showered you with gifts, compliments, meals out, weekends away. They then use devaluation and discard, creating invisible bonds. Not everybody is suitable. They are visible to some people. And when they realise this, they either walk away quickly or the other person walks away because they can see through their behaviour. Perhaps you've experienced this behaviour before in a relationship, more likely when you are a child growing up. So what others see you don't. You find it acceptable for them to treat you the way they do because it feels safe and familiar. The feeling of believing you have known them all your life comes from this, and they reeled you in so gently that you were unaware it was happening. The second tool, this was a game. Think of cod. Okay, so that's a link to the fisherman, but it's also a link to the games they play, to the war zone. And as I said at the beginning, you unwittingly walked into that war zone. COD, for Call of Duty, this was not only an assault on you, it was also a game, something to amuse them. And the more of a challenge you were, the more they enjoyed it. So once the idealisation phase is over, and they need to do this really quickly, particularly if you're one of many, they start delving into their toolbox for the best fitting techniques. And one of those techniques is isolation. They start with belittling comments and questioning the role others have in your life. It could be a friend, family member, or even your own children. Can you trust this person? Why do you confide in them? Can you not see the way they're manipulating you? Of course, it is them that's doing the manipulation. There's a great example of this in Dirty John on Netflix. In the first episode, John has stayed the night, and Debbie's daughter questioned what he was doing there and why. As she leaves the apartment, she deliberately knocks the fruit bowl off the side in anger. And John sees the opportunity to rush in, gush over Debbie, telling her that she shouldn't be putting up with this behaviour, how amazing he is and how he will take care of it and of her. And if you watch the series with this in mind, you'll start to notice him doing this a lot with the same daughter. Little put downs, challenging her behaviour. Now, please don't get me wrong, the daughter's behaviour was childish, but it was the way John used the situation to his advantage and then started to isolate Debbie from her children. Over a short period, she'd moved out of that apartment and rented one with him. Neither of her daughters were talking to her, and their son was hearing the stories about him, and he didn't want John near his children. They leave you with no emotional support. and then they turn on you, and bit by bit you start to fall apart. You have no idea who you are, what you've become. They attack you emotionally, which affects you mentally, physically, and spiritually. Number 3, nothing is ever good enough. Once you're in the cycle of abuse, you are held like the elephant, who is really strong enough to break the chain and walk away, but it's tied to his foot and he can't move. This fairy tale has turned into a nightmare, and this was done so insidiously. Like the frog in a pan of boiling water, it's warmed up so very slowly, it doesn't know what's happening. You might find yourself fighting for their attention. Once they were showering you with it, telling you how amazing you were. Now the words are what you've done wrong and questioning why you aren't like somebody else. They triangulate you. Some people will be invisible, others will be real. And they keep you just far enough apart so you can't compare notes, but near enough to create jealousy. You might find your finances depleting, so you work more hours or find a second job, whilst you're still looking after the children, doing all the cooking and cleaning, washing and ironing, paying all the bills. Gradually losing your self-esteem, but finding you still needing their attention, their validation. During the idealisation stage, they check to make sure you are fully invested in the relationship, more so than you are invested in yourself. They use coercive control to keep you in a place of needing them. You have no money, so you can't leave. You have no power, so you can't leave. This is deliberate. They are so insecure, their biggest fear is you abandoning them. And it is likely that if you're out of the relationship, you are now realising what's been happening. But it takes time to fully untangle yourself, having been left believing this was all your fault. This relationship felt so familiar because you have wounds that haven't fully healed or that you weren't aware of. If you recognise any of these situations and you don't want to repeat this type of relationship again, here are 4 things you can do. When you leave this type of relationship, you need to create space, and I mean physical space. Get outside in nature as much as you can. If you've been the victim of emotional abuse, it's quite likely that you're suffering some of the signs of complex post-traumatic stress disorder. You might be looking over your shoulder or feeling you're being watched or monitored all the time. Get out in nature as much as you can. 5 minutes, if you can, walk somewhere. Go to the woods, walk along a river, go to a park. Find space. Number 2 is stay grounded. When you leave these types of relationships, you live in a place of fear. Your self-esteem has been smashed to pieces. You've been told that you can't live without them. And they constantly told you at the beginning of the relationship how amazing they were and how lucky you were to have them in your life. It's so subtly done. It's a bit like brainwashing someone. So you don't know how to live without them. And when we live in fear, we live in our head. So we need to stay grounded. Walk around without any shoes on. If you can stand outside without any shoes on, find meditations that help ground you. Take salt baths if you're able to. Challenge your beliefs. Start questioning that situations are true. Is this true? Byron Katie does a lot. This is a lot of her work. When you create scenarios, asking yourself, is this true? When you're challenging things, when things are coming up for you and you're not believing you can do something, use the technique of befriending your personal fault finder. And the biggest thing you can do is heal your wounds. Find techniques that work for you. Find where this originates from. You saw the red flags and you didn't do anything because it was comfortable in some way. Where have you experienced this before? Find those wounds. But the biggest one, which encapsulates everything, is going no contact or grey rock. Because removing them or detaching from them, You can create space, you can stay grounded, you are able to challenge your beliefs, and you're able to work on yourself and heal your wounds. When you've created the distance from them, when you've created a space within your life that's free from them, you can start to move forward. I believe these things happen for a reason, and it's like turning the grit into gold. I know you possibly don't want to hear this at the moment. This relationship is here to help you claim back your power, to help you feel whole, and this is maybe something you've never ever felt in your life. I'll put the link to my website and a link to some of the meditations that might help ground you. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you've got any techniques that might help others, put them in the comments box as well. Sending you loads and loads of love.